Radio W and Money 2.0 present The Real Estate Report with Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines. Bay Area real estate and mortgage experts with over 25 years in the business. Now, with an in-depth look at this week's local and national real estate news and what it means for you. Your hosts, Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines.
Welcome to the Real Estate Report. My name is Tony Mendez.
And my name is Gordon Hines.
This is the Real Estate Report.
On here every Thursday, 6 to 7 drive time.
Welcome in. It's a call-in show, 800-516-1220. You can always email us, Tony at BayAreaLoanSource.com or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. We have a pretty long show, not long show. I guess it can't get any shorter or longer than it is right now. But we have a busy show. There's a lot to talk about. We can talk about anything from the remodeling market index. That's something to listen to if you are an investor or a homeowner. There's more renters at any time since 1965. Foreclosure states. Are you an investor looking to go into a foreclosure state? You think you'd be surprised at which state has the most foreclosures as a percentage. The cost of a hot economy in California, a severe housing crisis. That's something that we definitely will get to today. We're definitely, this part of the real estate report is some mortgage information. We're going to talk about 90% down jumbo programs. These are fantastic products. This is really where lenders have stepped up, Gordon, haven't they? There's just so many to choose from now. Which one's the best ones? And I think we're going to talk about one of those today. Lack of inflation raises new doubt about the Fed's ability to hike interest rates this year. That's another topic. Landlord alert. There's a new index aimed to take the risk out of being an investor in rental properties. I like that story because a lot of our listeners are investors. This is a really interesting one. There's a new formula in which this company called Landlord Alert, Roofstock. And what they're going to do is they've analyzed 72,000 separate census tracts, and they gave a risk rating to each one of them, like a 5-star, which means it's very high employment, averaged above average income levels, school district ratings, and so on. A 4-star rating is high employment rates, but average income levels for schools and district ratings. And 3-star rating is good employment, slightly below average incomes. And so what they've done here is they're trying to take a little bit of risk out. There's other companies that do this. What do you feel about you're a professional investor, Gordon. You own property in multiple states, many properties here in the Bay Area. What do you think of a place like this, Roofstock, doing a rating, and how much can you count on this actually working?
Well, I think those are the kind of things I always tell people. They always sound good on paper, but how practical is in theory? I think as a landlord, you have to equate, especially with fair housing, you have to equate every applicant based on its own merit. I mean, if you want to throw everything into a statistical pool, I guess you can, but I think you can kind of miss out some good tenants along those same lines. As long as you just solid credit checks, income verification, those kind of things. Things do change. Everybody history is not etched in stone. So you just kind of make good decisions based on the information you have in front of you.
Yeah, they call this a neighborhood rating algorithm. Anytime there's an algorithm that does something, it's never going to be perfect.
Those are all kind of things lead to discrimination. That's what I always tell people. So you just got to be careful, follow the rules, and make sure everybody get an equal shot at housing. I think it's all good.
I think it's a good tool if you're looking for rental properties. And I think this is one's designed for single-family rental. But I like property managers. Realtors have a tendency to kind of embellish a little bit, and maybe sometimes you feel like what they're saying is too good to be true. So property managers are the real end of rental properties. They're the ones who they're collecting the rent checks. They understand the characteristics of the neighborhood and the renters, and that's kind of really where you want to get to find out if that property in that neighborhood or in that census tract, if we're going to stay on topic here, is worth it. What do you think about find a location, this good schools close to the city that you want to be in, or the work, the employment, and then talk to a property manager?
Well, there's something that I call a pulse. I believe that every professional that has been doing something for a long time has a pulse, a trigger for what they can see that's going to work and what's going to see that's not going to work. It's like a doctor. If a doctor's been doing something for a long time, you walk in, you got a stomach ache. He said, well, it's not what you ate, it's your fingers hurting. Because he's been doing this for such a long time. He's seen so many different examples of that theory that he can give you something completely different than what you think it would be. Realtors are the same thing. Property managers, the same thing. When an applicant comes in and puts in an application for a rental apartment, we are in the loan business. When a person comes in and puts an application for a loan, we can kind of get a good sense of which direction that information is going to go, if the information is accurate or not, because we've been doing it for a long time. We're professionals. And it kind of goes back to our same theory. That's why I always push people to the professional. If you're looking to rent a place, use a property manager. They know what we do and how to look for and weed out the applicants they're not going to be solid for your rental investment.
And that's your algorithm.
Absolutely. Been doing it for a long time, so I know.
Algorithm, work with the professionals. I think it's a good tool. I think it's a good reference. Just like anything you find on the internet, it might not necessarily be in your best interest. A lot of these places sell stuff. I'd be careful, but run the numbers. That all makes sense. Again, we have a lot to talk about. What do you want to talk about, Gordon?
I got a lot of information to talk about. One other thing that I added last week. How you can reach out to us. If you don't want to email us, we get a lot of emails, of course, because sometimes we don't have enough time to get to them. You don't want to call because you're shy with phone. You can fax us. We got a fax machine right here. 925-299-5395. Fax is your question.
I don't think anyone
fax is your thought process.
Ever faxed.
You'll be surprised. Well, we never gave it out. So now we're going to I'm keeping an eye on the fax machine from now on because I know once you give people an alternative, people tend to use alternative.
You drank one too many Red Bulls, I think.
It's just another source of reaching us. We'll get that fax. We'll get that question on the air. There goes my algorithm for today.
All right, kind of on the topic of investing, would you as an investor go, okay, I'm looking for deals. I'm looking for places that, have good economy. And
every day I get called for investors looking for deals, right?
Every day. Would you look at the 10 states facing the most foreclosures and look at that list and go, okay, I like state number 2, for example. Would you look at a place like New Jersey, who's surprisingly number 1 in the United States? One in every 101 housing units is in foreclosure. That's up 1.8% from 2016 and up 8% since 2015. Is that a sign of going backwards a little bit here? It may be a judicial state, so it may have a little bit of problems.
I mean, that would concern me, especially based upon the market that we're in right now. We're in a very red-hot real estate market. Some areas of the country is hotter than some, but anytime you're seeing foreclosure that is high, where we shouldn't have a lot of foreclosures because the economy is doing well, the stock market's doing well, jobs are back. That would really concern me of investing in the area that has such a negative connotation.
Sign of a good housing market. Nevada, number 6. This is going to be a topic on a lot of people's minds, a lot of radio shows, a lot of people are talking about investors. Foreclosure rate, 1 in every 215 housing units. That's down 40% since 2015, down 30% from last year. Those are some good numbers. When you start Vegas, we know Vegas is home prices are going up. When home prices go up, less people are going to foreclose. They're going to find ways to keep that property and try to regain some of that negative equity that they may still be in. But rents are also going up. We're looking at a place like Reno, which is probably the closest out-of-state, what we call second-tier city. It might even be a third-tier city to California. And it's a booming city. A lot of companies are moving there. What are your thoughts on Reno?
Well, as we talked to a realtor today, a lot of people are California bound to Reno because it's the next frontier. It's affordable housing. When you compare market prices in Reno to market prices in California, your buck goes a long way and gets a bigger bang, as I'd like to use that old cliche. But it's a market where housing is important. Of course, the economy of the state's very important. A lot of companies are looking at Reno as an alternative source of employment. There's qualified people there. I think that Tesla, if I'm not mistaken, is going to open up a plant there. So all those kind of things really, really help encourage the economic housing indicators. That's what I like.
Northern Nevada is expected to add around 50,000 jobs between 2014 and 2019, according to a report by the Economic Planning Indicator Committee. The head of the Economic Development Authority also said that he thinks that the region will require an additional 5,000 homes per year for Northern Nevada. Foreclosures dropping, companies moving in. This is a kind of a gold rush going in reverse.
Well, I saw the same thing that's happening, believe it or not, in Stockton and Tracy. They said that Amazon and a few shipping companies are beginning to take advantage of all the open warehouse vacant space that they had, and those places now are beginning now to invite companies back. Employment now is back. People now no longer have to use those places as bedroom communities. They can live and work in the same city. So Tracy and Stockton is making a good recovery because those markets were really, really hard hit when the boom came because of all the 100% financing and people flocked there because of affordable housing. So there.
Would you, as an investor, would you look at California first?
I believe that California is the strongest market in the nation. So I think as California goes, so does the rest of the nation. The challenge of California, of course, is pricing, but it's all relative. I always tell people everything is relative. If you are, prices are high here because we make more money. If you compare California to the southern states, an attorney in Atlanta is not going to make the same amount of money attorney per hour in San Francisco is going to make. So it's kind of all relative. The housing prices in Atlanta is not the same price as the housing prices in San Francisco. So as long as you can maintain that balance, I think you're making a sound decision. I like California because this is where I live. I think we have a lot to offer here. We've got a complete package, and that's what I like. And those are the kind of states that are always going to be on the top as far as I'm concerned.
As long as we have low interest rates, it's going to drive people to keep buying houses. People are going to start making or continue making sacrifices. Let me rephrase that. Continue making sacrifices to get into property, especially with low interest rates. 30-year fixed, according to Freddie Mac weekly survey, is at 3.96%, 15-year at 3.23%, the 5-year ARM at 3.21. Not a lot of people using ARMs, but it's there. Rates are holding steady, even though the ECB is kind of floating the idea that they want to slow down on their bond purchasing. It hasn't happened yet, but it will in the future. It's kind of the elephant in the room. Because we don't know what's going to happen. We do know it's going to be volatile. We don't know if it's going to go up or down, meaning rates. How much of the rate change do you think, if we do see rates go up, how much do you think that's going to affect people's incentives to buy houses? Up to what point do you think?
Well, I think it's all, as rates go up, of course, the affordability factor comes less because the higher the rate, the less house you can buy on a fixed income. If you use a fixed income as a standard of income. How much it affects it, there's a plateau, I think, that we have to get to that margin of once we hit that plateau, well, I have to step out the housing market now because
any
my
chance
plateau.
You have an algorithm for it?
I don't have an algorithm for it, but it's something I could figure out. However, as rates go up and houses stay on the market longer, now you're going to see more supply, so you tend to see the market prices begin to soften. So it's all relative. It's a formula that comes right back into full circle.
We're not saying rates are up. We're saying they're going to eventually go up, and how's it going to affect? We're talking about people who are looking out of the Bay Area as affordability continues to constrain their ability to buy.
And we got a lot of people that are renting that are sitting on pins and needles, anxious to become homeowners, as we know.
What do you think about that renter who's sitting on what he would consider, or she, a down payment in the Bay Area that's quite not enough, but they want to get into real estate? Do you start looking in places like Stockton or Tracy? And I don't want them too much, but I probably wouldn't look there. I'd probably look at a city that looks like it's growing, looks like we have jobs moving to it. You know, that realtor that we talked to today, he said that companies that are moving to Reno aren't allowed to kind of publicly announce it, but when their employees want to buy a house, they have to give a gag order to the realtor so that they're not allowed to talk about the company name that's moving to Reno. I think that's finding interesting. And he said there's a lot. On that note, you're welcome to call the show 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220. Email the show, Tony at BayAreaLoanSource.com or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com.
Or fax.
Or fax, 925-299-5390. I want to check the fax machine during this break. We'll come right back.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
You can always visit our website, BayAreaLoanSource.com. If that's not convenient, you can always call the show, 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220. OJ, he made parole.
Yeah, free OJ. How's that?
Free OJ. I actually thought it was I'm a sailor, so I bought some gloves. I got them online, and of course I got the gloves, put them on, too small.
That's why I told you if the gloves don't fit, you can't sail in them.
And I guess I won't get on the boat either.
Well, the one good thing I can say about OJ, he's like a magnet. Look at all the media attention. I've never seen, even Charles Manson parole hearings doesn't get this kind of media attention. They shut every news today, shut down to cover. They had lines outside. They had all this police outside. I'm like, what do you think he was going to escape? I didn't understand that. But OJ's
he
news.
gets out in October. We'll see what happens then. Wait another 13 years.
Trump.
Plenty to talk about.
Trump. Today is Trump's 6-month anniversary of being in office. They say that I was listening to some different, economic news today, and they say the thing about the president, the first 100 days, the first 6 months, the first year is very, very important for them being successful, being to get things done in the economy. And I was just looking at all the different opinion about how successful he has been since he's been in office. He's done more presidential, and not say pardons, presidential scripts than anybody else since he's been in office. A lot of different things happening with him. As I tell people, whether you're a Trump supporter or not, give it time. In a year, by the end of this year, we'll know where we stand as far as how effective he is as a president. He's a little bit different. He's an albatross, but we just got to get accustomed to him, and we'll see where direction takes the country. That's how I see it.
It's interesting how he's pushing for privatization. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're looking they're on the target.
Yeah.
We also have some of Dodd-Frank as well, some reform there, which I would be glad to see some of that reform. He's really pushed forward on that. We just need to see it happen.
Well, here's some good stuff I heard. Dow Jones is up 9% since January 20th, since he's been in office. And that 9%, they said, has added $4 trillion in wealth to investors. That's a lot of money if you are blaming or giving him credit for the economic engine for the Dow Jones as far as him being in office or not. Rather, he calls it not. It happened on his watch. Jobs, he's placed 1,027,000 jobs since he's been in office in the first 6 months. I don't know how big of a number that is. I'll have to compare it to the other presidents since he's been in office. But unemployment is down from 4.8% to 4.4% since he's been in office. That's another good thing. Illegal immigration is down 70% since he's been in office. I don't know how you measure that, how many people come across the border or not. If you're there with a, counting with a ticker tape, and now you're counting again and saying less people are coming across the border. He signed 150 executive orders since he's been in office. And it's kind of interesting. So we'll see how it shakes out, and we'll see how it goes for the economy. All hail to the president.
Well, housing definitely hasn't been hurting. It's a little tight on the inventory. Home prices are going up. Affordability is still an issue. Rates are still low. And, if this is a real estate show, and if I was to say something about Trump, I'd say that I think he's darn happy that the real estate market's doing very well. Of course, he's a real estate billionaire, so he's got to be jumping up and down.
So
it's no surprise that he's pro real estate and pro economic growth. So I think it plays out well. Stock market, regardless of the stock market, I think housing is going to continue doing well. Low interest rates, affordability levels are pretty good. And we are seeing a migration of a lot of companies to places where there is more affordable housing, what we call second-tier city. San Francisco is actually a second-tier city. We don't want people to get it mixed up with what Wikipedia says, but what I mean by second-tier city is a city that has a lot of potential growth, where there's affordable housing and opportunities for, Nevada. The taxes-friendly state. That's what else can you ask for? Any comments you have on the show, email us, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com. Always visit our website, BayAreaLoanSource.com. And I don't hear any music, but I assume we're going to be off in a few seconds.
Well, the hardest thing is, I think I get calls
Jeremy?
all day. We get calls all day about people looking for homes and looking for jobs and looking for properties. And the hardest niche that I'm finding now is people trying to buy into low end, people looking to spend. When the person calls me and said they like to qualify for a home and they're looking for a $300,000 home, it's like a sour note because it's not a lot. It's not a lot.
I can tell you what Gordon was doing. He was cringing
for a person that can qualify for that price, because there's not a lot of things that you can buy, even in the bad neighborhood, as we want to call it.
We just wrote a contract for somebody in Brentwood looking at a $600,000 house in Brentwood.
A few years ago, that was a $200,000.
And it's spreading. Traffic is definitely hurting right now. Everybody out there that's driving right now, and please drive carefully out there and take it easy. It's getting worse.
Well, light rail's about to open up, though. I head out to Brentwood.
I want the tube. You want the tube?
Yeah, I
want to.
Well, we're going to talk about Elon Musk since you're talking about transportation when we come back.
We'll come back after this break here on AM 1220 KDOW. You can always call the show 800-516-1220 or email us, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.
Or fax.
925-299-5395.
There we go.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Lonely feeling deep inside. Find a corner where I can hide.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
It's the Real Estate Report, talking everything real estate, a little bit of national news, talking about Trump. We talked about OJ today.
Oh.
We might as well talk a little bit about lack of inflation raises concerns or doubts that the Fed has the ability to raise interest rates. What do you think about that, Gordon?
Well, I watched Janet Yellen on Capitol Hill last week, and one of the things she spoke about, and she consistently speak about in her speeches to the Congress, is the reason why she's raising rates is to kind of hedge inflation. They want to keep inflation around 2%. Last week I talked about inflationary dollars of contract, like compare Stephen Curry's contract to Michael Jordan's contract to Magic Johnson's contract, what the inflationary dollars are worth in a contract today versus the years that they signed these contracts. So that's her whole concern about trying to keep rates up, is to try to really keep a lid on inflation. That's the whole nemesis of her arguments.
Fed Chairman Janet Yellen, Fed Chairperson, raised a level of anxiety about inflation when she told Congress committee this week that the central bank was concerned about low inflation and would change its policy path if it persists. That was a slight departure from the previous Fed comments that the softening inflation is transitory and likely due to temporary events like a drop in wireless charges or low drug prices. You can only raise interest rates so high. And you certainly have to be aware that if there's no inflation, that rising interest rates is going to hurt instead of help. I am, for one, looking for a nice steady growth in interest rates over a long period of time. We're not seeing anything else move any faster. In a lot of cases, we're seeing some indicators drop, Gordon.
Well, one of the things that I always talk about too, when you look at market, going back to indicators that we talked about, market works on movement. And either direction the movement's going, but you got to have movement. So if you have a period where everything is going down, the market can kind of get stagnant in a downward trend. The same thing is going up. So when we have the fluctuations, the stock market, for example, it goes up and down, it's good energy for the marketplace because the market works off of energy. And that's a very, very important statistic that I like to talk about that kind of keeps the economy kind of moving, especially in the global economy. Something happens over in France next week, we got to kind of adjust. So if our inflation is going in a great downward trend and all of a sudden something happens overseas, because we're in the global market, it's going to adjust. So there you're going to see these things change in today's marketplace. So you can always predict today what's going to happen tomorrow.
I like the 30-year fixed when it comes to the type of product. ARMs, they are risky, and because they are tied to some sort of index that is tied to some sort of interest rate volatility. One of the products out there that we've been seeing hit the market here, especially here in the Bay Area and places like LA and all the other large metropolitan areas in the United States, high-priced areas, is the 90% down, 10% down jumbo. A lot of places say, well, we're capped at 1.5. Some will say we're at 2. Somewhere will say at 2.5. No matter what it is, it's 10% down without mortgage insurance. Okay, so that's the key here. A lot of these places will waive impound. They'll do what they call an impound waiver. You have good FICO score. That's the one thing that a lot of these programs require is if you're looking to buy a house with 10% down and it's jumbo, you have to have a good credit score because the rates are there. We've seen rates on these type of products range anywhere from 4.5 all the way to 7.5, highly dependent on your credit score. We've even seen these products 10% down, no mortgage insurance on investment property, 2 to 4 units. They even have interest only. These are really attractive for somebody who has that good credit score. What do you think about?
Well, that's one of the most consistent things that I've seen here in this whole credit formula in everything we do. Credit scores are so important. You could be making $1 million a month and apply for one of those loans and not be eligible because you don't have that 720 credit score. So the one consistent thing that I have seen in our marketplace is that credit score, the value of having a good high credit score. And that's important because everything is credit score driven.
We talk about this all the time. Go to annualcreditreport.com to get a copy.
You should always know where your credit score is every week. It's not a secret anymore.
At minimum, get Credit Karma. It's free. We'll come back after this break. You're always welcome to shoot us an email, Tony at BayAreaLoanSource.com, especially if you want some more information on this 10% down jumbo program, or for investors with 10% down. We have them. We'll come back after this break here on AM 1220 KDOW.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back in to the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
Name the album. You can't. You won't.
I won't.
It's the first album for this group.
Okay.
Listen to this. 44% of homeowners who have some regrets about their current residence that they bought or about the process they went through when choosing it, or choosing the house, that is. A survey according to Trulia. Home size was the leader in that category. Neighborhood, parking, renovation ideas. I think that's a big one. You get into a house thinking you're going to do a bunch of stuff to it and you never get around to it, or you ran out of money. And then the last one was lender choices. I found this interesting because most of the complaints were about using large banks. I think in the Bay Area we get a bit of the relationship between home prices and the size of the house. There's not much we can do about it. But I would hate to get in a situation where my regret is I don't have enough money to improve the property I bought because, I bought it in the right place, but it wasn't big enough and I spent a lot of money and, I don't have enough money now. How do I get money out? That's a big concern for people that, they're watching their equity go up, but they don't have the funds to correct some of the regrets that they might have.
Well, there's certain things you have control over, certain things you don't have control over. For example, if you bought a house and you made a choice of a neighborhood, you got to live with it because you made that choice. One of the big complaints that we get sometimes is, sometimes we get customers that don't want their loan to go to XYZ. And I always say, unfortunately, loans are bought and sold in the market every day. I can't control where it ends up. I can tell you where it's not going to go, but that investor or that servicer can end up with that loan. And sometimes these servicing companies can be nightmares. So there's no control we can do over that. So that's something you just have to live with. Even if you refinance, it might still end up at that next servicer.
They've gotten a lot better. The servicers have.
They have gotten better, but we still get a lot of complaints along that line. The grace period, the inaccuracy in information. So these things all kind of happen, but there's certain things you can control, certain you can't control. As long as if most of the things you're happy with, I use the 80-20 rule. You had the 80% of the things in your life as far as housing is concerned, you're doing pretty well. That's how I kind of look at it.
We're not going to get in this conversation because
I believe in the 80-20 rule.
I know you believe in 80-20. I believe that no matter what you're doing 100% efficiency.
And if you're doing 80%,
you're always doing 100% of whatever you can do at any point in time.
You can't control 100%. You can control 80. You're doing darn good if you feel.
You're saying that you failed 20%, but what if that's your characteristic? What happened? Okay, we're not getting. We had this conversation.
We had this conversation,
and it went in a big round circle. We're not going to do it. But what I found interesting about this article was that at the end they're talking about how do you fix your regrets, and the person who wrote this article basically said, when you sell your house, that's how you fix it. Sell your house.
And then you sell your house and buy a house and come up with a new standard of regrets. That's right. As long as it's the 80-20%, 80% of the things it's not regrettable. To me, that's a good choice.
I think I would regret I don't want to say this, but I do want to say it is, be careful what you do. A lot more research than just with your realtor. Be very careful, especially when it comes to the neighborhoods. Things will eventually gentrify. They will eventually improve. People will work on their yards and so on. And, the schools might get better. The potholes might get better. That sign that 30 years old might get replaced, but
that neighbor with that annoying dog might move.
It might move, but if you're getting promised that this stuff will happen, you got to do your research and see go talk to the neighbors. I think that was one of the best things I ever did when I bought my house. My first house, that is. I talked to the neighbors, and that was the only way I really got a good feel of what was going on.
Well, I had a conversation with a client this afternoon. He's doing a home style home, and he's cutting corners, trying to get the number down.
A renovation loan.
Yeah, it's a Fannie Mae home style renovation where you can finance the cost of your construction in your loan. You don't have to refinance to take the cash out to do it. And one of the things that I mentioned to him that I said, listen, as you kind of make a budget, don't cheat yourself to save a few pennies, because once again, that can lead to a regret that you didn't put in that second bath instead of opting for the half a bath because it was $5,000 more. So there's certain decisions I don't think you want to cheat yourself on, because the regrettable piece of it can be annoying when you don't get those things done. That's what I told him.
I regret not putting in that fireplace in my house I built. I regret not putting the dormers in. Don't know why, but I do. But one of the big regrets is I didn't make the garage big enough. I was like, it's extra $3,000 or whatever to add another 24 inches. I didn't do it. Now I can't fit two cars in the garage.
Yeah.
I can fit one and then maybe another one if I'm back it in and move it around inside and then move the other one in.
And see, that's a regret or a decision you made because of lack of experience, right? Lack of being a professional.
It really was.
Maybe you were talking to realtor and they talked to you about it, but you were counting pennies and you decided not to do it, right? And we can't do that sometimes. We can talk ourselves out.
I just bought smaller cars.
Okay. All right. There we go.
I found my way.
All right. It's always a compromise. As long as you can live with a compromise, then you're good.
The 80-20 rule, right?
80-20 rule. I got a great email I want to mention.
You can always email the show or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com.
Yeah, I refinanced my house back in 2016. I got a 0.25% 30-year fixed FHA. I've got a loan about $550,000. The mortgage insurance premium is about $325. I would like to, Gordon, can you help me out and see if I can refinance and get rid of the mortgage insurance because my value has gone up? Okay, Sam, I could refinance your loan and get rid of mortgage insurance, but I think the problem you're going to have is the rates are higher right now. So by the time you factor in the higher interest rate, unless you're looking to take cash out of that house, it probably won't be a benefit to you. So I will be able to get rid of the mortgage insurance if you now your LTV is above 80%, below 80%, I should say. But because rates are now gone up, you're probably looking about a rate around 4.25%, a percentage higher. And I think that probably would equate your $335,000 on the MIP savings. Unless you're looking to cash out, in other words, it's probably best to stay where you are.
There's a lot of people that have run into that situation where they used FHA and want to get out of the mortgage insurance, but there's a lot of people used FHA and because they had a shorter wait period, because FHA has shorter wait periods for foreclosures, short sales, bankruptcies, and things like that. And also they allow lower credit scores, and you can still get those low rates. So there is kind of a catch-22 that, yes, you got that low rate, you had that mortgage insurance, but your equity's gone up. Now you have below 80% loan to value, but your credit score is too low, and that rate will go up, and it will eat into that savings that you would normally have without that.
And you pay the mortgage premium for life. The old way, believe it or not, FHA, the mortgage premiums used to only pay for 5 years. So as soon as you hit that 78% loan to value, you're able to drop that MIP. But now it's for life. So once you get that MI premium, unless you refinance out of it, you're going to pay the MI premium for life regardless of what your LTV is.
Sam, thanks for the email. You can always email the show, Tony at BayAreaLoanSource.com or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. Visit our website as well, BayAreaLoanSource.com. We'll come back after this break here on AM 1220 KDOW.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
Thanks for joining us today. It's been an interesting show. Lots of stuff that we talked about. 10% down jumbo loans up to $1.5 million. Some of them go to 2.5 million. Foreclosure states, are those something you can look at as far as an investment?
Well, the 10% down program is important because as we speak all the time on the show, what energizes or drives the market are programs, but not necessarily rates. So this is another program to add more arsenal into the market to make the market more successful.
Lack of inflation raises doubt about the Fed's ability to hike interest rates later this year. That's another story we talked about. Here's an interesting one. Significant growth in the number of households renting their homes since 2006. So it goes back to 1965. There are more renters than any other time since 1965.
Well, that's what we talk about. A lot of cities have passed the auxiliary housing where they have less the restrictions on housing and having people rent the houses and adding rooms and converting garages because of shortage of housing.
Rising home prices, lingering fears of the housing crash, and larger amounts of student debt are some of the reasons why many Americans see the appeal of renting. According to Richard Fry, senior research at Pew. It's a pretty big number. 36.6% of households are renting right now.
I've got a lady, one of my clients. She was doing part-time work. She retired, needed something to do, got herself some additional debt, and now she's not doing a part-time job anymore. Now she's renting a room in her house for $1,100. She said, "I'm making more rent in a room in the house than I was making on my part-time job." How's that for flavor?
It kind of, in a roundabout way, I'm going to start thinking about something called a 1031 exchange. There's a lot of investors already know what this is. A lot of homeowners already know what it is. But if you're a renter, what does a 1031 exchange mean to you? Do you know where I'm going with this?
I'm going to exchange your tenant for my tenant.
I'm not
getting along with your tenant.
No, that's not, or my roommate or my spouse or whatever. No, that's not what it means. Let's say that you want to get into real estate. You like where you rent. It might be a little too expensive, but you haven't quite aren't able to make that commitment to buy a house, maybe it's down payment or credit score, whatever. Maybe you buy real estate somewhere else. All right. And let's say that you're able to save $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 every 2 years, and you can buy another rental property, and then another rental property, and then another rental property. You're buying real estate. You're buying it in affordable places where rents are steady and growing, and you're looking at a small cash flow, and somebody else is paying off your mortgage. Down the road, you can do what they call a 1031 exchange, and you can move. You can sell those properties, identify a property within a certain period of time, exchange all of that equity into maybe your dream home, for example. Then you turn tax free. Okay, that's part of the 1031 or Starker exchange rule. And then you move that into that said property. You rent that out for a couple of years, and then you can move into that property. You've moved a lot of equity over without paying the capital gains tax on it. So maybe as a renter, all of those 36.6% of those households that are renting, maybe that's their way to get into real estate.
A concept that I've been thinking about, as we talk about, it's hard to scale down, house swapping. While your kids are gone, and there's a family down the street that's looking for a bigger house, you swap houses, swap base, and bam, there you have it. You don't have to go through all those changes. Today in history, 1969, Neil Armstrong, first man to walk on the moon. You didn't know that, did you? And believe it or not, there was another guy that walked behind him. Nobody knows his name. Everybody knows who Neil Armstrong is. Guy by the name of Edwin Alden walked right behind Neil. Nobody knows who he is.
I think I heard Buzz start. He was talking about trying to get to Mars.
Okay.
Which I think is crazy.
1973, the great Kung Fu King, Bruce Lee, died.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a sad day in history. I remember where I was when Bruce Lee died. I heard about it. I thought it was fiction. Couldn't believe it. I started crying because I was a Bruce Lee fan. I was fighting. I was growing up in Brooklyn, fighting crowd in the street. Hi-ya! Hi-ya! I was very, very disappointed when I heard that Bruce Lee died. 1973.
This year in history.
Or
this day in history, that is.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
We'll be back next week.
Back next week. You can always email the show, Tony at BayAreaLoanSource.com.
Or fax. We added
You're
that.
not going to fax. I know you're not going to fax.
I'm guaranteed if we don't have a fax next week, I'm going to stand on my head.
All right, 925-299-5395. Don't fax. How about that? Don't fax. If you fax,
I won't have to stand on my head.
Gordon will have to stand on his head. We'll come back next week. Thanks for listening to us. You can visit our website, BayAreaLoanSource.com. Thanks for being with us.